In a village by the tall baobab tree, an elder's voice and whisper sets us free. Jubosmiles on screens, a tale they weave.
In the city of Abuja, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and the rich drove cars that gleamed like mirrors, there lived a woman named Mrs. Eloho Benson, CEO of one of the fastest rising real estate empires in West Africa. She had homes in Dubai, London, and Banana Island. Her face was familiar on TV, her quotes plastered across business magazines. Success followed her like a shadow. But behind the glamour, in one of her marbled mansions, lived her only daughter, Kayla. An 8-year-old girl with everything except a mother's attention. Mrs. Eloho was rarely home. Her schedule was booked months in advance. She believed she was doing it all for Kayla to give her the kind of life she never had. "Just tell me what you want, baby," she would say during her rare check-ins via video call. And Kayla always had a list: phones, iPads, ponies, designer shoes, private tutors, a walk-in wardrobe. There was never a no, not once. Kayla learned early that if she wanted it, she got it. But in place of love, she learned manipulation. In place of respect, she learned entitlement. The household staff walked on eggshells around her. She would throw things when angry. She once locked the cook in the pantry and laughed when the woman cried. No one dared to report her because everyone feared her mother, the Iron Lady of Benson Holdings. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a hot Saturday afternoon. The household was unusually quiet. Kayla had grown tired of her new dollhouse and wandered into the servants' quarters, where she found Ada, the housekeeper's daughter, playing with a hand-made toy. Kayla scoffed. "Here! What is that? Why are you playing with trash?" she sneered. Ada didn't answer. She simply held her toy tighter. "I said, give it to me," Kayla yelled, reaching out. "No," Ada replied softly. That single word, "no," ignited Kayla's rage. She chased Ada up the back staircase to the unfinished balcony, where crates and construction tools were scattered around. "If you don't give me that toy, I will throw you off," she screamed. The workers shouted from below, trying to stop her. In the chaos, Kayla grabbed a metal pole, trying to scare Ada. But something happened. A slip, a misstep, a scream. The pole didn't hit Ada. It slammed against the railing. The metal bent under pressure, and Kayla lost her balance. The staff rushed to her, but it was too late. Her little body hit the ground with a thud that silenced the entire compound. Paramedics came. Her mother was flown in from an investor summit in South Africa. She arrived at the hospital in tears, her once perfect makeup streaked with pain. The media caught wind of it instantly. Then came the flood of footage. Security videos, audio recordings, staff testimonies. Kayla had bullied not just Ada, but nearly every child who stepped foot into the mansion. And Mrs. Eloho, she had known. She had received complaints, and she had silenced them all with money, threats, and pride. Now the empire she built on cold foundation was crumbling. One headline read, "CEO behind bars after child's tragic fall, justice for the voiceless." And while her daughter lay still in the ICU fighting for her life, Mrs. Eloho sat in an interrogation room, drowning in guilt, wondering when she traded parenting for profit. The private hospital's hallways buzzed with whispers. Doctors in white coats moved swiftly. Nurses rushed from room to room. But inside ICU room 7, silence reigned. Kayla lay there unmoving. Tubes fed into her tiny arms. Machines beeped steadily, guarding the thin line between life and death. Mrs. Elo sat in the corner, hair disheveled, phone switched off. Her designer handbag dumped on the floor like trash. This was not the confident, sharp-tongued CEO the world knew. This was a mother, a broken one. Her assistant tried to reach her. Her lawyers called multiple times, but she couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. Her mind kept replaying the last voicemail she ignored from the housekeeper. Madam, please. Your daughter pushed her die again. My daughter has bruises. She's badly injured. I don't want trouble, oh. This is getting out of hand. She had brushed it off. Handle it, she had told the head maid. Do you know how many meetings I have today? Now the media circus was in full swing. Neglect or entitlement. Nigerian CEO faces backlash over daughter's brutal behavior. Ex-staff speak out. We were paid to keep quiet. A system that failed the child and many others. One by one, people she had trusted stepped away. Clients cancelled contracts. A major investor withdrew 2 billion naira from a joint project. Sponsors cut ties. And worst of all, the mothers of children who had suffered under Kayla's cruelty began speaking out. One mother cried on national TV, "My son developed anxiety after being at that woman's house. He was a piano instructor. Kayla slapped him when he corrected her hand position. We told them, but nothing happened. The only thing they told us was that she's just a child." That sentence haunted Eloho. She's just a child. But now that child was unconscious, and all her money couldn't fix it. Then came the moment that turned the tide. Police officers showed up at the hospital. One gently approached her. "Ma, you need to come with us. We have questions about your involvement in previous reports of abuse. Evidence shows that there were several payoffs made under your instruction." She blinked slowly, not even surprised. The only thing she said was that, "I need to see my daughter." "You will get a few minutes," the officer said. "Then we'll have to take your statement." He entered Kayla's room again for the last time before custody. She sat beside the bed, holding her daughter's lifeless hand. Tears dropped silently onto the crisp white sheets. "I thought I was doing right by you," she whispered. "I gave you everything, even what I didn't have. But I forgot to give you what mattered. My presence, my time, my no." Kayla's finger twitched. For a moment, hope flickered. But it was just a reflex. The machine continued its steady, cold beeping. Eloho buried her face into her daughter's hand, sobbing. Not just for what had happened, but for everything she had allowed to happen over the years. She had built empires, but she had failed at home. And now, the storm was just beginning. The ride from the hospital to the police station was long and quiet. Mrs. Elo sat in the back seat of the patrol car, sandwiched between two female officers. The world outside the tinted windows blurred into grey streaks. She barely noticed the paparazzi chasing behind, snapping pictures from motorbikes and yelling her name like she was still a celebrity. But those days were over. Inside her chest, a storm raged. Guilt, grief, shame, fear, and beneath it all, a haunting question. What if Kayla doesn't wake up? When they arrived, she was led through a side entrance to avoid the press. Inside the small, poorly lit interrogation room, her expensive perfume mixed oddly with the stale air Her lawyer arrived minutes later, sweating, stammering and shaken. Madam, there are over 9 complaints. Most of them were covered up. Some involved payments signed under your authority. This is serious. The police believe you enabled child endangerment, intimidation and obstruction. Hello said nothing. She just stared at the table, at the scratched surface, at her reflection in the metal. That table had more structure than the home she had built. Then a voice came from across the room. A young female officer looked at her, not with disgust, but with quiet pity. You know, ma, your daughter wasn't born like that. Children are born blank. We shape them every years without correction. Every I am too busy. Every time you ignore the maid crying in the corner, it all adds up. Elora's lips trembled, but no sound came out. She was only 8, she whispered finally. Yes, the officer said. And now, another 8-year-old is in therapy because of her. And your own daughter may never open her eyes again. That was the breaking point. Elora burst into uncontrollable sobs. Not the graceful tissue dab kind, but the ugly, chest-heaving kind of sob. She gripped her chest like her heart was physically tearing. Yes, it was. Back at the hospital, a nurse adjusted Kayla's oxygen levels. The child still hadn't moved. Her head was wrapped in soft gauze, her limbs stiff. But then a blink, subtle, small, and then another. Her eyelids fluttered, her fingers twitched. The nurse gasped, "Doctor! Doctor! I think she's responding." Monitors beeped faster, machines adjusted automatically. A team rushed in, surrounding the little girl with hope and urgency. But she wasn't fully back. Not yet. She was in that in-between space, awake but not fully aware. The doctor made a note. Patient shows signs of response. Prognosis uncertain. Needs neurological evaluation. Potential trauma. Emotional counseling advised. They had no idea how deeply damaged Kayla's mind might be. They didn't know what she remembered or if she remembered what she had done. Meanwhile, at the station, Elora sat in the holding cell wearing a standard issue jumper now. Her phone has been confiscated. Her nails, once pristine, were chipped. Her wig tilted slightly. She didn't care. The silence was loud until the officer came in again slowly and said, "Your daughter just opened her eyes." Elora stood up instantly, heart pounding. "Can I see her?" "Not yet. The doctors are observing. But you need to prepare yourself. This isn't just about her physical healing. They say she might have memory gaps, emotional trauma, and if she remembers what happened..." The officer didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The look in Elora's eyes said it all. Because what terrified her most wasn't jail. It was the thought that if Kayla recovered, she might one day look at her mother and hate her. Not for what happened, but for everything that led to it. 3 days later, Mrs. Elora sat in the cold white corridor of the hospital's psychiatric wing. The court had granted her temporary supervised visitation rights after her lawyers argued for her to see her daughter. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. What would she say? Would Kayla recognize her? Would she scream, hate her, or worse, feel nothing? A nurse stepped out of the room and nodded gently. "She's awake. You can go in." but just 10 minutes. Elo took a slow, trembling breath and stepped inside. Kayla was sitting up, pale and fragile, her legs crossed beneath the blanket, her head wrapped in gauze, and her eyes, once wild with entitlement, now looked dazed and lost. She looked up. Their eyes met. For a few seconds, time stood still. Then Kayla blinked. "Mommy?" Elo broke down. She fell to her knees beside the bed and wept like a child. "I'm here, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Kayla didn't move. She just stared. "Where have you been?" I was busy," Elo confessed, sobbing. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought giving you everything would make you happy." Kayla looked away. "Ada is scared of me." Elo froze. So she remembered. "I hurt her," Kayla said quietly. "I wanted to scare her, but I got hurt instead." Elo's heart sank. Her little girl remembered everything and understood. There was no shouting, no dramatic embrace, just a painful, uncomfortable silence between a mother and a daughter, both broken by choices, mistakes, and the lies they once called love. Kayla finally whispered, "I don't want the big house anymore. I just want you." Elo crumbled, and in that moment it hit her. She could have protected her. She could have guided her. But she chased the world and lost the soul closest to her. The visit ended, and the doctor later informed Elo that Kayla would need long-term therapy, trauma rehabilitation, behavior correction, and emotional recovery. And Elo, she was sentenced to 1 year in correctional custody with mandatory parenting rehabilitation and restitution to the families whose children were harmed. Her empire gone, her title stripped, her image tarnished. But oddly, none of that hurt anymore. She wrote letters to Kayla from prison, apology letters, healing letters, stories of her own childhood, what she had survived, what she had feared. For the first time, she wasn't gifting objects. She was giving herself. When she was finally released, she returned to a small rented apartment. No maids, no staff, no press, just her and Kayla. They cooked together, cried together, and healed one wound at a time. Kayla still had nightmares. Some days she would push her mother away, still unsure of her place in the world. But slowly, with patience and consistency, love returned. Not the performative kind, not the expensive kind, but the real kind rooted in presence, truth, boundaries, and healing. Moral of the story: a child's greatest need is not luxury. It's love, time, and discipline. Parenting is more than providing. It's guiding, correcting, and being there. When you ignore the red flags in your child's behavior, you set them up for pain, and yourself for heartbreak. No success is worth it if your child pays the price for it. Have you seen children raised without correction? What were the results? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe for more true to life stories with powerful lessons that heal and transform. Turn on notifications. We share stories that speak truth, stir emotions, and inspire change. Thank you for watching. Until next time, love deeper, parent wiser, and never trade presence for possession.
Through wise eyes, can be drums and melodies arise. In a village village by the tall baobab tree. An elder's voice and whisper sets us free. Jubosmiles on screen.